In this episode, we're going to take our tank from bare metal to full painted and clear coated. And I'm also going to show you how to turn aluminum parts from the boring aluminum color to a bronze, brass, almost gold color. So if you've been following along, we left off with our tank being lined on the inside, the bungs for our sight glass welded in, and it's down the bare metal. So I'm sure you've heard this before, but you gotta put the time into the prep on paint. And here's why. I'll try to explain it the best I can. The paint job, let's think of that as the Taj Mahal, right? Real beautiful, ornate, amazing. But if it were built on a crappy foundation, probably wouldn't look so good after it toppled over, right? Same thing with paint. If the foundation that you're putting your paint job onto isn't up to snuff, I don't care if you spend $500 on a paint job. If you don't put the time and effort into the prep, it's gonna look like crap after a while. First few weeks, months, maybe even a year, it'll probably look amazing. And then you'll start to see bubbles, you'll start to see it lift, and next thing you know, it fails. We're gonna be doing this with rattle cans, and because we're gonna put the effort and time into the prep work, we can make that rattle can paint job look almost professional. There are a few steps to follow. I'm going to go over each and every one of those. First thing we need to do, now that it's at bare metal, and yeah, I sanded this, but that's been a week now. You have to get this sanded, and we're going with a light grit. We're not trying to polish this, probably like a 120. We're going to do that because since I sanded this before, we've got some contaminants on the surface. There's even a few spots that have some surface rust. We've got to get rid of that. So if you sand this thing down and leave it overnight, guess what? Oxygen's already gotten to the steel. It's already started the oxidation process. It's not what we want. What we're going to do, 120 grit, wipe it down with acetone. Once the acetone has flashed and it's dried off, we're going to hit it with some etching primer, self-etching primer. So let's do it. We're going to hit this with 120 grit. We're not trying to change the surface. We're just trying to get any traces of any sort of contaminants and surface rust off with this 120 grit. You don't need to go at it like a 300-pound gorilla. We're just going to sand it real light, scuff it up, make sure it's clean, and that'll give us a keyed surface that the paint can better adhere to. Once we're satisfied that we've got everything cleaned up, we're going to wipe everything down with acetone. You can use isopropyl alcohol, you can use paint thinner, you can use paint prep. I have acetone, so that's what we're going to use. And that's just to get any sort of grease or oils from your hands off and to wipe off any sand or any metal left from the sanding process. Once we're satisfied with that, we are going to immediately hit it with some self-etching primer. Our next step is to take care of any actual errors or issues in the metal. And to do that, unless you can do the sheet metal work prior to all this, your next best thing is some sort of body filler. And don't go too heavy with this. You're going to have to sand it multiple times. And this is the part where you really need a sanding block. If you use your fingers, you can actually sand grooves and lines into that filler that you just applied. Use a sanding block. If you see any low spots, you'll know, because when you sand the Bondo, they'll be a little darker in color. If you see any low spots, mix another batch of Bondo, reapply. Sand it down until it's smooth. So after a couple layers of Bondo and a lot of sanding, it should look like this. The edges should be nice and feathered in and smooth. No major flaws left. It is a little dusty. And there are a couple little pinholes, and you can actually use another product for that without having to mix up some more body filler. And it's just a red glaze, and it's only meant for very, very small things. So that'll work perfect here. And because we did take the tank down to bare metal in a few spots, we're going to have to hit it with the etching primer again. And then we'll scuff up that primer and we'll hit it with some filling primer. And then once that is set, of course, follow the directions on the back of your cans. Okay, this is not a perfect how-to, more of an overview. And each manufacturer has different times and different guidelines. And here's another tip for you guys. If you go with like Rust-Oleum primers, use Rust-Oleum paint. Stick within the same brand and same series if you can, because you know those are chemically compatible. After we are happy with the primer, clean that off really good. Then it's time for the real magic to happen. This is where all that prep pays off. We're going to paint this tank gloss black. Now we're going to put a few coats of color down, and 3-4 coats of this following the directions. We've got color on the tank. The next step is to smooth that out. So if there's any orange peel, or if you got any dust in the paint or any bugs or anything, now is the time to correct that. If it's not that bad, you can wet sand. And you can't use just any sandpaper as wet dry sandpaper. You have to buy wet dry sandpaper. Trust me, I know this from experience. If you take regular paperback sandpaper, you dip it in the water, you start rubbing your tank with it, and it's going to disintegrate in your hand, and it's going to be a big mess. You'll know it's a level finish when it is all kind of opaque looking, kind of flat. Once you get it all flat, we're not trying to sand through the color, We just want to get it all flat and any of that orange peel or anything corrected. If you need to do more coats, do more coats, but follow the directions. I can't stress that enough. Now we're going to step out away from the Rust-Oleum products. I've had amazing luck with this particular product. This is the secret to getting your rattle can, Rust-Oleum, Krylon, Duplicolor, whatever paint to look near professional or professional. This is a catalyzed clear coat. That means it's a two-part. So there's two chambers in this. There's the clear and then the actual hardener. You have to combine the two in the can. It tells you how to do it on the can. Follow those directions, shake it like it says, make sure it's mixed up, and then we're gonna hit it with a flash coat, which is a light coat. Let that kind of set up. And then we're gonna do 3 or 4 coats of this clear. Once we've allowed it to cure, check it over. If it needs any more work, do it now. This stuff has a shelf life once it's mixed. I believe it's 48 hours. Yep, 48 hours. Once it's mixed, you have 48 hours to spray it. And if you don't, it hardens in the can and it's no good. If you have to, you can wet sand with 1,000, then 1,500, then 2,000. Once you get to 2,000, the nice shiny wet look that you get from this is going to look flat again. And then you have to hit it with some rubbing compound and then some polishing compound. And you can do that manually by hand or with a machine. But if you're happy with the way it looks, there's no need to go down that road. Okay, so we're going to take this aluminum and make it look like brass because I want to do black and brass on that bike. So we're going to do this process to some other parts on the bike, but this filler cap will work for the purpose of this video. Straight aluminum, and all I've done is hit it with a Scotch-Brite and proceeded to drop it on the floor and nick it all to shit. So I've hit it again with Scotch-Brite. Now, when you hit it with the Scotch-Brite, it's going to be shiny. Let it sit for a couple days. It needs that oxide layer for this process to work, okay? Now this is a product from a company called SUR-FIN, like SUR-FIN USA. I'll link in the description. And this is their brass gold patina for aluminum. They have this for other metals. They have different colors, and like I said, for different metals. This process is for aluminum to patina it to a gold, brass, bronzy kind of look. It's a two-part process. There's a part A and a part B. I'm not going to go over the directions step by step. It's real simple though. It's a mix. You mix part A and part B into a container, mix it really well, and we're just going to brush it right on. And as you brush it, you'll start seeing that oxide layer change colors. The more you brush it, the more coat you put on, the deeper and richer that color is going to be. We'll clean it off, and then to protect it and keep it from having any issues and to keep it looking shiny and new, we're going to hit it with what's left over out of our 2K clear. So was the $50 we spent on rattle can paint, sandpaper, Bondo, and all that, and our time worth it? You tell me. I'm pretty happy with the result. I think it looks great. That black paint looks like it's still wet. I'm afraid to touch it kind of wet. I guarantee you it's not. It has cured for like 3 days now. Yeah, and it's super smooth. Could we have done a better job? Probably. I mean, if I made some sort of makeshift booth to keep the dust and the bugs and stuff off of it, yeah. Our feeler cap and the 90s that we'll use for our fuel site, once these age a little bit, they're going to look identical to that. I may even, once they do age, I may try to shoot those in some clear. I don't know, we'll see. But you kind of get the idea. I unfortunately was unable to find locally some clear fuel tubing, so unfortunately I have to order it online. But it'll come from here, loop down, and as I'm riding I should be able to see that piece of tubing, and if the fuel is up here, or if I don't see a bubble, then that means the tank is full or nearly full. And if I start to see air in it and it's about halfway, tank's halfway. If I see the fuel kind of disappear in this fitting, well, I know it's time to look for a gas station or I'm going to be pushing it home. So once I get that done, I'll probably post some pictures online. But yeah, that's it. I think that came out really good, especially in the garage with as dirty as it is in here, with the bugs that are in here. It came out really good, especially for 50 bucks, right around 50 bucks. That's hard to beat. But that's it for this one. I know it was kind of long, but there was a lot to kind of go over. And if you want to do this yourself, links down in the description for everything we used. But that's it. Until next time, guys, get up, get out there, and do it.